Hi everyone, welcome back to Presence at the Polls. My name is Liz White. I'm the Deputy Director of One Virginia 2021 and the coordinator for this effort. And I just want to welcome back those of you who are returning for your third, fourth, fifth shot at this, and give a huge welcome to everyone who is new to this. We're so grateful for all of you signing up to help us out. Presence at the Polls is one of the most important things we do all year. We get to do it twice a year. And in Virginia, there's elections every year, so we get to get really good at this over the last few years. But it is our biggest opportunity to grow our supporter base, to educate voters, to empower communities, to make this issue their own and really figure out how it applies to them, what it means to them, and we couldn't do it without you, so we're really grateful to have you. My goal for this is always to make sure that you feel really comfortable going out into the world on our behalf. So this is going to be a lot of repetition for those of you who are old hands at this, and maybe even some old information for those of you who are familiar with the issue but not necessarily with Presence at the Polls. But I'm going to try to keep it brief and we're going to move on. I want to go over all of the materials that you will receive for Election Day. Most of what you need to know is going to be covered in your Presence at the Polls volunteer training. This is something I'm going to be emailing out. In fact, it will be attached to the same email as this video, so you already have this. We've added a page. All of the information is pretty much the same from June. Everything that has happened since the General Assembly is in here, an outline of what our constitutional amendment that we're working through looks here, is listed here. A really 101 description of the issue, why it's a problem, why it matters, how it affects Virginia, what needs to be done to change the Constitution, that process. So you should be able to really digest that first page pretty easily. That's the good 101. The second page is specific to Election Day and logistics. So your responsibilities, I'm just going to pull out and highlight the nonpartisan nature of this volunteer gig and of our organization. There are probably more competitive races on November 5th than there have been in the entire time we've been doing this. Usually, it's a few congressional races or a presidential or a governor or a senator. But this time it's the entire General Assembly. And I will say, as someone who helped coordinate this the last time this happened in 2015, people are much more aware and much more involved. So I know a lot of people have a candidate or a race or a party that they are tracking and watching and supporting, and that's fine. We all do. But while you are representing One Virginia, please take off that hat. This movement, this fix will only work if it is bipartisan. It only passes with votes from both sides. And it is important to remember that especially in Virginia and in recent history, there are villains on both sides of the aisle. There are heroes on both sides of the aisle. And this is truly an issue where there's a both sides to be had. So we are nonpartisan. We need you to be nonpartisan, and to help with that, we ask you to talk to people on their way out. So I often greet people on the way in just to kind of become a familiar face and a friendly face, and say I'd love a minute of your time after you vote, but I'm the only person here who doesn't care how you vote. And that usually gets their attention because everyone else trying to talk to them on the way in is telling them who to vote for, handing them a sample ballot, trying to get their attention to one side or the other. And you can just be a friendly face. You may also get asked where the bathrooms are or election-related questions. They'll assume you're an election officer because you have a clipboard and seem nice. Answer what you can and then refer them to someone who can probably answer their questions a little better. But that's fine. So we talk to them after they vote. Your number one goal is to get them to sign our action form. The action form and the information we get from it is helpful in several different ways. So It does put them in our database, and as I mentioned before, this is the biggest growth we have. Every time we work one of these, we get between 9,000 and 12,000 new supporters in our database. Huge, huge opportunity. We've sent you out to important districts where we need certain legislators in some cases, or certain communities to really hear voices raised on this issue. So super important. We'd like to get all of the information. We're going to go into specifics a little later. You also have this very handy form that was created by some volunteer leaders in Arlington. Thank you, thank you. And they break down each piece of information that we are asking for and say what we do with it, why we need it, which is most important to get, what you should prioritize. Quick bullet points: we need the physical address to tell us who their legislators are, where they live. Preferably not a P.O. box, because that doesn't track as easily. I mean, you can't tell for sure what district they're in because the districts are so crazy. But preferably a physical address. A P.O. box is not the end of the world. The email address is vital. We're going to get into it later, but we need the email address in order to generate the email on their behalf to their legislators, to their senator, state senator, and their delegate, which is the other cool thing about having them sign this up. Not only do we get their information, but we help them take 2 action steps in one. They contact both their legislators to say that they care about redistricting reform. The legislator will not get their real email address. It is masked. It's a secure online tool. But the legislator is able to respond to them and engage in some meaningful dialogue, and they often do. But they will not be able to add the signer's information into their own email list because they won't have the real email. We don't share or sell anyone's information. We take this very seriously. Again, we'll get into this. But this is job number 1, is to get their information here. If they would like some more time to think about it, would like to go do some research, if they're in a hurry, if they seem maybe interested but not yet, option 2 is your RAC card. These are a great tool as well because they have on the front a district drawn by Democrats in by Democrats in 2011, the redistricting we are currently living under. This is a Senate District 37 in Fairfax, and this is a Republican-drawn district. It's House District 72 in Henrico and Richmond. It's currently held by a Democrat, but not for lack of trying, as it was drawn by Republicans. We are currently living in a bipartisan gerrymander. The Republicans had the House of Delegates in 2011. Democrats had the state Senate. Each party gerrymandered their House and passed each other's. So it was more important to most of the delegates and senators to make their own seat safer than it was to ensure their party's representation in the other chamber. As I said, heroes and villains on both sides of the aisle. So this is a really helpful visual, and then the back really just helps get them to our website. We haven't updated these cards in the last couple election cycles, but we have updated the website. So it's taking them to the same place, but that place has a lot of new information, a lot of new tools. They can download action forms to use in their community if they are feeling moved to take a clipboard of these to a farmer's market, as a lot of you do. That's fantastic. That's on there. There's some frequently asked questions. There's ways to contact us. There's just some good information and tools, and a pop-up as soon as they get there that will prompt them to sign the action form. It has the exact same effect signing online as it does signing in person. So if they don't have time to do it at the polls, give them one of these, send them here. If they don't seem interested, this does not need to go home with them if it's just going to go right in the recycle bin. But you will have about 150 of these for your 3 to 4 hour shift. So you should be okay to hand them out pretty liberally. So this form, going back to your training section, I would just ask you to really give this a pretty good look over. It's got some of the most frequently asked questions at the polls and some ways to answer them, and then a whole new page about the email addresses. I went into some of it with you. This is a lot more detailed and is put together from feedback of people like you all who've been out talking to people about this and the concerns they have, the questions they have, and hopefully this will help answer it and help us collect more email addresses because those are the most useful pieces of information we can get. The other things in your packet, you will get a few of these. We're going to hand out about 5 or 10 to each volunteer. These don't have to get handed out to everyone, but if someone really wants to get down in the weeds on our proposed solution, this is a great illustrated explainer of our proposed constitutional amendment. And then the back kind of summarizes the enabling legislation, the supplemental legislation that we're trying to get passed this time. Some of this will depend on the results of November 5th and who is in charge, but those results will not change what we are working toward. Basic things like setting clear criteria, making sure there's as much transparency in the process as possible, and really making sure that the application process for citizens to be on the commission is open, transparent, fair, representative of the Commonwealth as a whole, things like that. So I would encourage you to give this a good look and then hand this to people. I mean, if someone is that interested, those are our people. We want those people. So send them on with one of these. This is also on the website. Other little handy tools, you have this page. This is a brand new page. I recommend putting it in one of these little plastic sleeves, though we didn't provide them, and they may not be necessary if the weather is nice. But you can just either stick this on your clipboard and lift up your action forms and show people, or you can tape it right on the back and have that. But it's a helpful one page. It not only gives you a visual representation of the process to pass a constitutional amendment and tracks our progress with a big old check mark, and then it also gives you really basic bullet points on the proposed commission. If someone doesn't want this level of information, they might want this level. And that way you don't have to memorize it. You flip it over, you can read it all together. The other things you will get a clipboard. You will have 2 stickers in case one gets wet, in case one's on outerwear, just so you have a backup. You may have a button instead. Either is fine, but it helps identify you as one of ours and gives you a little air of authority on this issue. If you need it, we hand out pens. Whether or not you need it, I encourage you to use a ballpoint pen, especially if the weather looks iffy. Both pencil and anything not ballpoint tends to run. We have enough trouble trying to get people to write legibly, which is another thing to encourage as you're watching someone sign up. The grid lines on the action form are helpful in that, but if you can do anything in your power to make those letters and numbers legible, we are really grateful. Our data entry volunteers are really grateful. That's all of your materials explained. Everything else that you need to know should be in those documents or in the emails I send, including inclement weather plans, connections to the other people working your precinct. I will be sending those emails out in the next week or so, or your local leaders will be connecting you. And then we like to get out of your way because you all make magic happen when you say, I have a tent, I have a table, I have chairs, and I'll come and pick them up. And anything that you want to do for that, you can be a person and a clipboard, and that's the whole operation, and that's fine. I do recommend bringing a chair, if only to put your things in while you're talking to someone else. But if you want to set up a chair and a tent and a banner, I love it. I love it. We've had people do that. It looks incredible. Take pictures of yourself, whether you are a person with a clipboard or you have a whole setup. Take pictures. I'll be including the social media information in our emails. We'd love for you to share the pictures with us and allow us to use them. We'd love for you to put them on our social media, on your social media. Spread the word that this is a really volunteer and citizen-led effort, and that our grassroots strength is mighty and growing. Bring a light source. I always forget this in November because June is so bright all day and then November surprises me. But if you have the morning shift or the evening shift, I can't guarantee that your precinct is going to be well lit. So I would bring a flashlight, a lantern, a headlamp if you are so inclined, anything like that. We'll know more about the weather as we get closer, and I'll be sending out information to coordinate canopies, etc. if necessary. But that's really the big stuff. If you read through the emails and the documents, you should be set. If you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to me or to Brian Cannon, our executive director. You can email the polls email that you've been getting information from, or director@onevirginia2021.org goes to both of us. And then I will also be hosting 2 optional conference calls, the Friday before the election and the Monday before the election, for last minute questions, last minute discussions. You do not have to be on those calls. Those are really just a guaranteed way to reach me if you need to. Again, thank you so much. We're so grateful, and good luck out there. You're going to be great.